So next talk will be given by Vasco on implication in cosmology with the observation of black hole. So you have 15 minutes.
Thank you very much. Yeah, at the end of the day, bear with me for a few minutes more. Hello, everybody. I'm Vasco. I'm a PhD student here at L2IT in Toulouse. And I will be talking to you about some recent results that we have on the reconstruction and on the observation of the black hole distribution. Let me start by an overview on the methods that we use in this kind of field. So population analysis, which address the question on how we combine multiple observations in general to get inference on the population. And what we want to do is to get a bunch of observations and to estimate the parameters that govern the population from which the events are drawn. The way in which we do this is we use Bayesian analysis, and which allows us to exchange a probability distribution on the data, which is what we have, given a model that we assume, for the probability distribution of the model that we want to infer, given the data that, again, we have. To put this picture here in a more formal way, you can look at the equation on the left, which is Bayes' theorem, and we are going to have at the end some posterior distribution on the population parameters lambda, starting from and sampling from a likelihood, which we call a hierarchical likelihood, is the likelihood for the population, and multiplied by some prior information that's normally going to be flat on the population parameters. Okay, so what is this picture here, how it translates for our case of black holes? So we have, in the universe, we have these binary black hole mergers that happen. They produce gravitational waves. They arrive up to us. We measure them. And we have a bunch of catalogs for which we have an estimate of the properties of the events, which is what I'm showing you here in this plot. This is just the estimates from the events from the last observing run. And these, I'm referring to the primary mass, so the mass of the largest black hole, which is what we are mainly interested in this talk. So we would like to do something similar to here when I draw in my laptop a bunch of Gaussians from a Gaussian population distribution. But the problem is that we don't know the shape of the population of black holes by first principles. So this is what we want to learn. Good. Let's move to real data. If you remember Michaela's talk a couple of days ago, she summarizes nicely the results on the current events. And what I'm showing you here is, let's say, the fiducial picture that we have on what we know now about the distribution of black holes. This is the probability distribution for, again, the primary mass, the largest black hole. And we know that the band that you see around the distribution, it's related to the uncertainty that we have in this measurement, in its reconstruction. We know there are a few features. There is an overall power law behavior. So we have more events at low mass compared to events at high mass. We have some a peak here at 10 solar masses, and we have an overdensity around 35 solar masses. So you could say, well, Vasco, this looks a lot as a power law plus a Gaussian peak. And it is by construction, because as I was saying before, to do this analysis, we need to assume a model, so a functional form for the population distribution. And in this case, this is exactly a power law plus a Gaussian peak. This is why the results looks like that. Okay. So a few months ago, I was looking for some properties starting from this result here. It doesn't matter what, but at some point I was having problems in actually reproducing this result. And in fact, the distribution that I was finding at the end, instead of being the blue one, which is the one as before, it looked like the pink one here. Let me stress that these two results are obtained with the same assumptions for the model. So both are with the power law plus Gaussian peak, but they look very different, as you can see. The difference between these two analyses turned out to be the width of the priors on some key population parameters, especially the slope of the power law and the width of this Gaussian peak. And since I didn't notice that compared to the standard ones that are used in the literature, I increased these priors and I was getting this distribution here, in which, like qualitatively, in the blue case, the bulk of the distribution is fitted by the power law, and then you have the Gaussian that fits this overdensity here. And in the pink one, the roles are kind of exchanged, and we have a sharp power law peak at 10M, and then the truncated Gaussian fits the rest of the distribution. A couple of things to say here is that the pink distribution is largely, I would say, statistically preferred compared to the blue one. We get base factor of 150 preferring the pink one compared to the blue. Another thing to be noticed is that in the pink case, we kind of lose the ability to resolve this peak here. So at first I was a bit puzzled about this result, which I clearly didn't expect. So we decided to run some simulations to try to understand the situation a bit better, which is what, sorry, yeah, this is me trying to convince myself that the two results were the same and I didn't have any problem. But so what I did is to inject a distribution which looks like the dashed black line, and it's artificially built to have both features, both the sharp peak at 10M and the overdensity at 35. But I was drawing some synthetic population from the black distribution, and I was recovering doing this population analysis with only a power law plus Gaussian model. And even without playing much with the prior bounds, it was quite easy to reproduce at least qualitatively, the results with real data. As you can see, using the narrow priors, the fiducial ones, you get the blue distribution, which resolves the 35 solar mass peak. Whether by increasing the priors, you get, again, the pink distribution, which better resolves the 10M peak. So this was cool, and it also showed that it points out to the fact that using this data set and this model, the hierarchical likelihood is bimodal, and basically by using sharp priors, you restrict yourself to a part of the parameter space which contains only a local maximum of the likelihood. And if you go to the real case, if you increase the priors, then the sampler preferred to go to the other peak, which is the pink one. But so things were a bit clearer after the simulation, but still the question remains, if the data are actually more complex than the model we are using, the next step is to try with a more complex model. So this is what we did. We tried all the combinations of Gaussians and power laws with 3 features in the model. And even if for most of these models, the results were not very informative and we were finding back the pink distribution, there were a couple of exceptions, and one in particular, which is the green distribution that I'm showing you here, for which results looked very different. Yeah. So these are the results using 3 power laws for the model. And as you can see, we are able to fit this sharp peak at 10M. We still have, we also have the 35 overdensity, but we also got some additional structure in the distribution. We have a third peak now at 20 solar masses, and we have like a dip here. So that was weird. We didn't expect it. It was a bit of a surprise. Also, one thing to mention is that it brings an evidence which is even slightly favored than the white priors think analysis. But when I started to look into the literature, there are other methods which are more flexible, which are called semi-parametric or non-parametric methods, which instead of just fixing a model as we're doing here, they take care of additional degrees of freedom. And sorry, yeah, I put memes and then I forget about them. It's we call this model the camel for obvious reasons. So here I'm showing you that these results, our results with other results from semi-parametric analysis taken from the literature. And as you can see, things start to be more self-consistent. You see the same behavior overall as in our case. So we were happy with that. So we would like to, what we want to do with this analysis is to, at the end, to learn something about the astrophysics that governs this population. We get these very sharp features at 10M, and we get this drop at 15M. Are those astrophysically robust observations? Well, if you ask me, I would probably say not very much. Should we believe that there are no black holes for mass below 10 or almost zero black holes at 15M? But this is probably systematic induced by the limitation of the flexibility of our model, which is still the best we have today, as far as we know, for fully parametric analysis. I want to mention that future catalogs with more events will allow us to better constrain this distribution and overcome possible systematics due to undersampling. Cool. The last thing that I want to mention is since we probably cannot trust astrophysics from these results, can we use that for something else? The answer is yes, and it's cosmology, as Nicola was saying. There is a method which tells you that you can use the population of black holes to learn to infer the cosmological parameters with only gravitational wave information. So basically, like qualitatively, as Nicola said, if you don't have any cosmology and if you assume no redshift evolution in the astrophysical distribution, your observed distribution will look like this. All the features will stay the same in redshift. If there is cosmology, they will be redshifted. So this distribution, which is the one you observe, contains directly information about cosmology. So cool. The inference on cosmology depends on the features that you have in your distribution. We have seen that with the camel, we have very sharp features. So we just plug it. And what we got is that if you look at this plot here, it shows in yellow the posterior distributions on the Hubble constant coming from the LVK collaboration, from the GWTC3 catalog. And in blue, you see the posterior distribution on H0 from our analysis with the camel model. Well, the uncertainties are clearly very large, but still, you get a almost 30% improvement by looking at the confidence interval on this parameter, just by changing the mass model, which with the same set of data, which is quite impressive. These are preliminary results, so take all of this with a pinch of salt. Ideally, this in the future, with more observations, will shrink, and but at the cost of having a proper and reliable model for the black hole population, which is a big if. Hopefully, we will develop these methods, more robust methods in the future. I think that was everything I had to say. I'm happy to take questions, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Time for question.
Thank you for this super nice talk, and you know that the mass function is very close to my heart. So it's more a comment than a question. So I don't know if you noticed that in a population studies, all of them almost regardless of the code, there is some peak at around 17 to 20 solar masses. Even too high in most population models. I'm talking of the astrophysics, okay? Actually, we are reverse engineering the thing, and we start realizing that this peak is induced by the core collapse supernova model. So I guess if I want to add a question to it is with your models, can you also try to quantify whether this additional peak is a stochastic fluctuation consistent with a stochastic fluctuation or instead inside the data, physical one?
Yeah, so I don't know. I would probably use at least a semi-parametric approach for this kind of study, because, like, especially with the first power law, it's not super easy to interpret it astrophysically, this part here of the mass function. But to answer your question, yes, like you can run simulations, you change the number of events, and you see when you start to confidently recover this peak here with the amount of number of events that you need. But as you pointed out, I would say that all of the analysis, and now even the parametric ones, kind of agree, at least overall, on the presence of these peaks. Are they statistically significant? It's very difficult to do. The only thing that I can say is that you should do an injection study, systematic injection study with repeating the analysis multiple times, a different set of events, and this will give you an answer, statistical answer. But then the distribution that you pick for the simulations will not necessarily be the true one.
Questions?
No, it's just a follow-up comment. This study has been done, the one that you suggest, for up to O3 data, or maybe only O3A. I think by Tom Callister, but I'm not sure if it's the first author. Anyway, they find this still consistent with stochastic fluctuation, but yeah, I think it will be interesting anyway to redo the analysis in the near future, because this peak is very important also to decide whether one branch of the core collapse supernova models is the good one or another one is the one to be pursued, let's say, to be considered.
Yeah, if I can comment. Also, this paper here was doing something similar to assess the robustness of this peak. I don't remember exactly the conclusions, but it's probably we still don't know.
Time for a very last question, eventually. If not, let's thank Vasco again.